Here we go. Hey, Judy.
Hey, Lisa, how are you?
I love it. I'm doing great, thanks. Got my lipstick on, so I'm
And your
feeling like
green glasses, you're looking right on, eh? Looking good.
yeah, I haven't had them for the last couple weeks. So they
Really?
were just down next to my bed and exactly. So I put them on because I was trying to read something with you right before this podcast and was like, let me get those glasses because they
They,
are my jam. I
they
like them.
are. And they look great.
I have never seen somebody. There was one lady one time I saw who had some bright glasses, and I can remember how she just drew my attention. I thought that woman's got some attitude.
Hmm.
And that's what these glasses do for me. They make me have a sense that I have attitude.
Exactly. Well, you're looking at the world through those bright green glasses. You can't help but be excited about life, right?
Exactly. And about what life can hold,
Exactly. And
right?
that brings
Because
us right into line with what we want to talk about today.
exactly. Today it is all about the art of reinvention. And,
Yes.
usually I go on a walk before we do our podcast
Mhm.
on the weekends sometime. And today I did not. My phone, Craig, my lovely husband, set up on my nightstand a nice little charging center and everything. And so I got this morning and saw that it was all dead. I hadn't put it on the charger. So I put it on the charger. And then I thought, I want to do this and this. And, how is our podcast doing? And I was looking at stuff and I'm holding the charger as I'm doing these things. And then after I was done, I thought, oh, it's probably up to enough now. And I looked at it, and it was at 1%.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, so it must not charge when you're using it. In contrast to the way it used to, I mean, with I would just stick the plug into it. It would charge
Hmm.
while I was surfing or reading or playing or listening or whatever.
Yeah. I
So,
can't help you because I always charge mine at bedtime and get up in the morning and then it's charged.
well,
So,
that's why Craig set it up for me on my nightstand,
mhm.
for that exact thing. He found it in his decluttering and thought that it would benefit me. So,
Well, I have to
anyway,
have an alarm that goes "Mer, mer, mer." If I don't have that, I don't wake up in the morning.
no, I often will wake up minutes before my alarm clock goes off.
Do you really?
at 5:10. So or 4:10. Right now I'm getting up at 4:10. So anyway, yeah. With that being said, so where I was going with this was that glasses. Where were we going with this, Judy?
We were going to the art of reinvention.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the reason I was talking about my phone was the fact that I take my phone on my long walk and I
Yes.
get ideas for what the podcast is going to be about. And today I didn't. And so it was just me and my brain. And the thing that kept coming up for me was reinventing. And I'm in that process of reinventing myself right now. And you are in a process of reinvention. And I've given a lot of thought to this lately. And it's really right where the two of us are at.
That's
Wouldn't you
exactly
agree with
right.
that?
Hmm.
So, one of the things I've talked about in the past, just here and there, is how, one path to reinvention, and it's the path that I don't want people to take, is that path um, set up and you are put on the path due to trauma.
Hmm.
And whether that is a health diagnosis, or you find out that your partner's been cheating on you, or they come home and say they want a divorce, or
Hmm.
something has happened where you need to reinvent, where
Hmm.
you're
Or there's a
suddenly
death and you're in a whole different relationship situation.
yeah. So that brings me to you, and you have just recently gone through that.
Hmm.
So you've gone through a trauma with when Michael passed.
Hmm. Well, I actually went through a double trauma. I had for the first time in my, I have to say, for the first time in my life that I can actually say with positivity, I found the job of my dreams. I found
Mm-hmm.
a job I absolutely loved. And then my department was eliminated. And I became aware of that March 1st. Then on April 4th, my birthday, my husband died.
Mm-hmm.
And then on May 19th, I worked my last day. So I was having two traumas. One was, okay, now what do I do job wise? And number two, who am I as a single person? And what are my goals different? Do I stay the same? And, I had some things that I had to reinvent from just a practical place. I
Mm,
needed to support myself.
mm, mhm,
And if I wanted to keep the home I love, Social Security wasn't going to do it.
mhm,
So I made a very, very conscious decision to search for jobs. I did give myself 3 months to just be with the fact that I was alone and to get over. Not you don't get over it ever, but to just kind of become what's the term? So that I was sleeping at night now, and I was not every day, finding myself dissolving into tears and all those kinds of things. And that took me about 3 months. But I mean, I still talk to Michael every day. And I wear his ring on my index finger, and I still talk to him every time I put it on. However, that being said, what I know is the way that Michael treated me and loved me, he would not want me to wallow.
mhm.
So I had this trauma, and there were two ways that I could go.
No. Okay.
Well, technology got to us, Lisa. Here
Yeah.
we are
Okay.
again. Okay,
So
I was
keep
talking
going.
about I had a decision to make. I could
Mhm,
go one of two directions, obviously not both. One was to say, I have no clue what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to sit and chill and wallow. And I did take a little time to settle down, from being upset about things. But at that point, I identified that there was so much I wanted to do, and I needed to decide. I knew from reading Life 101 that I couldn't do everything, but I could do anything. Thank you so much for that book. I've kept it in my mind for the last, 45 years probably. And I did make one major decision, and that was that I needed to support myself, and I wanted to work at a job that I really enjoyed. I didn't want a job that was just a job to support myself to get from point A to point B. So finally, as of the 29th of January this year, I have a job that I am loving,
mhm,
which is so cool. So I go to work every day with a smile on my face, and that kind of eases the pain of not knowing how I'm going to support myself. And so what it's done is it's given me freedom to explore other ideas that
mhm.
I can do. Not that I'm going to eliminate that, because I don't think I will, not by choice. But for example, um,
Well, it gets you out and talking to people and having experiences. And
absolutely.
I think that's so important. Instead, when you're single, especially, giving yourself a reason to get up and get out of the house and do things and interact with people gives you a life force. It gives you purpose. It gives you a reason. Even gives you stories, things to talk about. It makes you interesting.
Well, I said it jokingly for several months now, as when you and I have podcast, that my dog is not a great conversationalist, and you just probably heard her barking in the background. However, thank goodness for her, because she has filled a void. But I love being around people and sharing. And this job has elements of technology in it. And oh man, I wish I were 30 years younger to have the technology come to me just like that. But it gets better every day. So I'm just going to continue to plug away at it and use every other skill I have as far as dealing with people and so on and so forth to move myself forward. And
Yes.
if I hadn't made this choice, I wouldn't be doing that.
Yes. I mean, you are a perfect example of somebody who has experienced trauma and has used it for the benefit of yourself. And I mean, you had a choice. Like you said, you could have, just kind of thrown in the towel and said that was the best it what could be. And now I don't know, and just kind of, I don't know if you use the word wallow, but just kind of went with the flow, shall we say?
Well, you can kind of numb out,
Hmm.
and I have to admit, one of the things that this technology has been wonderful for is that I've listened to you talk about your love of podcasts, and I've
Mhm.
started listening to podcasts about being a widow. I
Uh-huh.
never even thought about being a widow, but oh God, now I'm going to remember her first name. Is it Krista St. Germain? I think is her name. She has a lovely podcast and is so helpful about saying, your loved one that you had this wonderful life with would want you to be the best you could be. And for you to take the numb out attitude isn't helping you. And she gives you information like people say, aren't you done grieving yet? Well, you're never
Mhm.
done grieving, but you're never going to replace that person. And for
Mhm.
me, I'm finding I'm not interested in a romantic relationship, but I am interested in growth.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I feel like if you're not growing, you're slowly dying. And, I can see this in my plants. I had one plant that has done so well over the summer outside. It had sun and it had the right exposure, and I brought it inside and it flowered 3 times. And I thought, oh, awesome, this is going to be great. And now it's looking a little sad. And so I fertilized it and I pulled all the dead leaves off and I'm babying it a little bit. And I bet you it's going to be back because it doesn't want to die. It wants to
Is
grow.
that the Gerbera daisy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the
And
one.
it's several years old. So this isn't its first it's not its first rodeo, right?
It's not. This is its third year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just am not willing to stop doing the things I know how to do. Now it may die in spite of me, and then I'll probably buy another one because it's been a really fun plant. But
I don't know. It's seen its last days. It's, you know,
I brought it
it's
back
very,
before.
I mean, wow, what a comparison. I think there are so many different analogies we could tie to that Gerbera daisy and how it has gone through phases of lushness and dying back and coming back and
Mhm.
blooming and then,
It
you know,
almost has seasons. It goes through a season of rebuilding and a season of reinventing, and then all of a sudden I see new leaves, and then I see buds, and it's 3 different colors in one plant. It's, what is it, red, yellow, and
my
orange.
guess
And
is it's just three plants planted very close together. I don't think it's three colors in
oh,
one plant.
yeah, very
Yeah.
much so, but it's all in the same
It's three
pot.
colors in
So
one pot. Yes.
yeah, that's it. So I just think that
Well, I think the other important thing is what did you say? One of the things that you're doing to help it, you're pulling off the dead leaves.
yes,
Ooh.
dead leaves just draw energy that plant doesn't have. And I think that's the same thing with us. Those dead, negative, oh, woe is me feelings just take energy from us that we could use to expand a bit. I'm not
I'm
saying,
thinking, I'm thinking right now back to that conversation that I had with Michelle on the podcast 2 weeks ago about called the Fly Lady.
uh-huh,
And, the dead leaves in her life are clutter and disorganization,
uh-huh.
and how she's using a system to unclutter, organize, and clean her house, and how that's making her feel a freshness and an aliveness that really helps her become the person she wants to be.
I have to tell you, it's also contagious because I don't
Mm.
think I'm at it to the same degree that Michelle is. But I find myself, and now at this phase that I'm in, now I have this job I'm really enjoying, and I'm going to that every day and gaining new experiences. And when I come home at night, I don't want to just plop down and do nothing. I'm like, ooh, that bathroom cabinet really needs cleaning. I'm going to pull everything
Mm.
out of there and get rid of what I don't need. And, of course, when you have someone pass, you have old things that don't belong to you anymore, that you don't need anymore. And then I was putting away some pots and pans in the kitchen cabinet, and I ended up with all the pots and pans on the floor and my vacuum cleaner out. And it's contagious. And when you get done, I asked Michelle a question. I said, so when you get everything all cleaned up in a room, do you go around and open the cabinet doors and look and go, ooh, doesn't that look good? And she said, yeah, I do. And I thought, I do too. It feels so good to have it done that you want to take a
kind of
minute,
kind of
appreciate it.
like give it pets and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Doesn't that look good? And I think cleaning a clean refrigerator will do that. You get so
Mm,
used to the spills and
yes.
the junk in your refrigerator, and then you go in and you clean it all up and you open the door and it's like, oh, that looks good. Now it looks a little more appetizing. So, I think decluttering, you're right. You can declutter your things, you can declutter your mind, you can
Mhm.
declutter your ideas, well, I guess that's kind of your mind, but I've even read that if your garage is dirty and a mess and you walk through it every day, that it can draw energy from you. So
Yes.
I think you owe it to yourself
Yeah.
to really decide, even the first small step, and you've talked about this, clean out
Mhm.
your sock drawer, you
Okay,
know?
so before we get any farther in that, you're right. That I
Okay.
mean that is wonderful. So backing up just a titch,
Mhm.
we were talking about how really trauma can be the impetus for somebody wanting to reinvent their life. But
Yes.
you're right. You were talking about, you hinted on it just a little bit ago. I think you you can also come to this place of wanting to reinvent by being in a conscious decision making place.
Mhm.
And that place is often found wrapped in boredom,
Boredom,
apathy, ambivalence.
ambivalence. Yep.
Yes. I think I don't know what middle-aged woman or a person who's been in a career for a long, long, long time doesn't kind of sit back at one point and go, this is not what I thought it was going to be, or this is
Or
not
is
where I
that all there is? Is
is that
that
all
is
there is.
you know,
Exactly. And so as we had that quote that I was telling you about earlier, life isn't about finding yourself, it's about creating
creating
yourself.
yourself. Yeah,
And
I think that is so true. And the other thing, I'm 20 years older than you are, if not more. No,
no,
not
I think
more.
no,
But
you're 15 years older than I am.
it's yeah, but
Anyway.
I'm older. And what I am finding to be absolutely amazing to me is how short life is. And
Mm,
do you really have time to kind of struggle at the same thing for
mm,
years after years after year and then finally just kaput?
mm,
No, you
mm,
don't. And I also heard a quote which I can't remember that said you don't want to live your life where it ends with regrets.
mm,
So if there is something that you've been really wanting to do, something that triggers even just a mild interest, it doesn't have to be your passion. It could be something that, every once in a while you'll get an idea. And when you start examining that idea, you actually feel better. You feel hopeful. You feel uplifted.
excited. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that thing for me is playing the ukulele and
Well, you
tinkering
know
with that.
what? You and I have matching ukuleles.
We
Yours is
do. We
yours is
do.
yellow, mine is orange, and your
Yep.
mother's is pink. I think we need a trio of ukuleles, but that's another theme for
Anyway, so
another.
what you're saying, you're right. Pick something, pick one little thing, whether it be playing the ukulele or calligraphy or cleaning your house from top to bottom. Pick one thing, something that you find to be just a small change, just a
Mhm,
small change,
mhm.
and start there. I think that's a great way to get that reinvention started.
Well, and if you need ideas, I think the podcast thing is amazing. I mean,
Mm,
you can find a podcast about almost anything, can't
you
you?
can. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
if you can't find a podcast, you can find a YouTube channel. So, there's no real, how should I say it? It used to be these things were kind of hard to figure out. Well, they aren't hard to figure out anymore. All you have to do is to open yourself up,
Well,
and
the
that,
the thing that I want to put a caveat on is I don't when you said the YouTube channel, I went, ugh. I think there are lots of people that then can get sucked into watching somebody else explore
yeah,
and develop and grow and shine. Like on and YouTube, you can watch somebody else playing around with the ukulele and
never do
you
it
never
yourself.
actually pick up the ukulele.
Mm.
Yeah. Where when you listen to podcasts, I love that because I can walk and think and get excited and then come home, pick up my ukulele and play.
It's
It's
it's less passive.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
podcast is less passive. I
Yeah,
do
it
agree
seems
with that. What
to
I
breed
really like though,
activeness.
I've been trying to figure out the grooming of my dog, and I've called countless places, and I've gone everywhere in my mind, from wanting to go to dog grooming school to wanting to beg a groomer to let me watch whatever. So finally, last week I called my breeder's daughter, and we brought her dog back when we brought our dog back from Washington State. And we figured out that we're only 3.5 hours apart. And I know that she is an expert groomer. And so Michelle and I are taking a road trip, and we're going to Indiana next Saturday, and she's going to groom my dog. And I got to tell you, I am so excited about that, because I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do this. And what I'm realizing is what I'm missing is a starting point.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm,
identifying that I need to get her groomed and clean so that I have a starting point and I can maintain that. I don't
mm-hmm.
have the knowledge yet to create it from scratch. And oh my
Interesting.
God, I am looking forward to that road trip, and
Yeah.
bless Michelle for being willing to come with me, because that's a long drive by yourself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
all I can tell you is that I feel excited about it. And if
Yeah.
she said I can watch everything she's doing, and she'll explain it to me and tell me what tools I have that are the best ones and so on. And it just all of a sudden it kind of opened up a new avenue of, instead of dreading taking care of my dog, I think once I have some tips and I know what I'm doing, I'm going to really enjoy it.
Huh. Cool. Really, that fits perfectly with what we're talking about here. You have made a decision, you've committed to this dog and figuring out how to groom her. And
Mhm,
now you've taken the first step. And not, the first step was kind of the struggle to find an answer.
mhm.
And you did. You found an answer that's a day trip that's going to be fun. You're going to spend it with Michelle. You're going to go out and you're going to drive there. I don't know what you're going to listen to in the car. Or you're just going to talk the whole way. What's going to happen? But you're really
Well,
excited about that. That is
I've
so
been
cool.
talking to Mich I want to talk to Michelle if she's got a good book on tape that we could listen to, because 7 hours, you can usually finish a book by then.
Hmm, hmm.
Whatever she wants to do, I'm open. It just feels so good to sort of have a plan in mind for that.
Okay,
And
so let's stop there. I love
okay.
what you just said there. A plan in mind. So I think people that are listening to this are going, well, great, she's got a plan, but I really don't have a clue. I'm in this place of boredom, apathy,
Mhm,
um, ambivalence.
mhm,
What about me? And so you and I did a little brainstorming before the podcast,
mhm.
and we came up with some ideas for that. Some things that maybe just because me, I'm a teacher, I love this kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
you are somebody
I love it.
who loves that
I'm a
self
world
exploration.
a lifetime learner. Lifetime
Mhm.
learner.
So
Yep.
we were talking about how back in the day, this was more than 20 years ago, we had both experienced a couple of really fun books.
Mhm,
And these books come with these like personality tests,
mhm,
tests that you can kind of play around with. So the first one that I have that I've loved and that I've used is this one. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably
Probably
end up
end up somewhere
somewhere
else.
else. Yes. And this one was copyrighted, I believe, 1974. So
Mhm,
this one it's rich and
mhm,
it's um one of those first books of the genre that probably even came out. I don't know, but
mhm,
this one is 50 years old. So
mhm.
isn't that crazy to say
Oh,
that?
I can't believe that. That's just
Oh,
50 years old. Oh
oh
my
my God.
goodness.
And then this one is when I had been out of teaching for a couple of years, and then I jumped back in again. But before I did that, do what you are, and it really helped me out. And I was like, what should I be doing? Where should I be going?
Mhm.
Who am I now?
What's
I had done
next?
that back in college. I had done some kind of interest inventory that directed me in it was a test that didn't ask you about job qualifications, but it put you together with people in careers who had the same likes and interests and personalities.
Yes.
And mine was definitely in education.
Mhm.
So, which,
Education is like huge. I mean, that can
mhm.
take all kinds of shapes and sizes.
So then more recently, so now let's jump to the current. I was listening to a podcast and there was the greatest author that was being interviewed, Jonathan Fields, his name is. And he was talking about his book. It's called Sparked. And I was like, ooh. And it's once again different ways that we present in the world and how we can look at what our motivations and interests and likes are and really observe ourselves from the outside.
Mhm.
And what I loved about it was that there is his site that's goes along is called Sparketypes.
Mhm.
You can take it the total test,
Mhm.
totally 100% for free.
Mhm.
And then it gives you a really nice rundown of what that means about you. But if you want to dig deeper into it, then you can buy the book, which I did. I
Oh.
mean, I found it so valuable and so interesting that I did take that test. I mean,
Mhm.
Craig took the test, you took the test, Mom took the test, Shell took the test,
Mhm.
everybody took the test. And
Over the years, I have taken a number of tests, and
mhm,
the go-to one was always Myers-Briggs, and I
mhm,
did that as part of a work exercise that was so successful to a company I worked for. I
yeah.
was an assistant manager to a man who I just thought the world of and respected, and I had a friend of mine who was assistant manager to a person, a manager that she respected, and both of us were having horrible challenges accomplishing what we needed to do. Well, what we figured out is I was just like my manager and she was just like her manager. So after we did Myers-Briggs, you know what we did? We switched, and I went to work for her manager and she went to work for my manager. Well, the problem was I liked to do all the same things my original manager liked to do, and so all the things that we needed to do that we didn't like, we weren't doing. And what happened when we switched was like we became so much more effective and so much more productive and so much more fulfilled. It was wonderful. And
Mhm,
Myers-Briggs has a book called Please Understand Me. Everything has a book, I know. And I
mhm,
oh, I am the queen of having so many books, and as many that I've skimmed but I haven't read.
right.
But you know, there's always a book.
Yes.
I even went so far as I have a person who speaks to the public. He's kind of goes from a Christian background. His name is Dr. Gary Smalley, and he does a personality testing thing for adults, and he does a very good job of it. But what I really liked is he wrote a book for children, and it
Hmm.
was called The Treasure Tree. And the treasure tree talked about four animals. There was a golden retriever, a sea otter, a lion, and a beaver. And the four of them all had very unique, definite attributes that brought success to those
Them.
animals' lives. Well, what was interesting is I started going to confirmation classes and things like that and doing this test, and kids just loved it, and they found it to be so interesting, and it really brought out the idea of I'm doing different things than you are. That doesn't make me wrong. It just means I'm different, and the things you're doing aren't wrong, they're just different. And so it not only helped you know kind of what your thing was, but it helped you know that judging other people's characteristics was really a downer. It wasn't helping anybody. And so that was a lot of fun. But I'm just
Hmm.
saying these quizzes can be insightful. And
Yeah, yeah.
the other thing it does is it can narrow the playing field for you. You know, if you know that your strengths from your own inventory that you've done are this way, but you've been trying to be this, you've been trying to be all things to all people, it's very freeing because you can focus your attention on the areas that interest you and that
Yeah.
are meaningful to you and that bring you satisfaction.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of one really good friend of mine, and she's said for years that, you know, if she wasn't doing this, she really doesn't have any other interests. She doesn't know what else she'd do. I mean, she likes to watch TV.
Mhm.
She likes doing stuff with people, but in terms of what nothing really, lights her fire. And I was doing some research for her, and I was also, besides the book Sparked, there were some other ones that I found online for her. That one is called Truity, another is called Career One Stop, and a third one is called O Star, the symbol net. And I thought, I'm going to check those out and see what kind of information they give me, to see if I'm going to recommend them for her or not. And I thought, I'll put those in the comments of our podcast. And if you'd like to take one of those, I'll have the information about where they are. And I'd love other people's take on what they thought. So I'll also do the one that goes along with this book, Spark, with Jonathan Fields.
Oh,
And
great.
find your Sparketype. And yeah,
Well,
just really.
I brought up Google, and I brought up lists of personality tests, and one is the 23 best personality tests in ranking order of 2024.
And
it's got Myers-Briggs in it. There's 23 of them. So,
well, but the ones I was looking for, I wanted them to be free. That's the other thing.
Well, you can do a Myers-Briggs test free. Hold on. They've got why should I take one? What are the benefits?
Well, anyway, the other one that
it'd be a good site to look at if you were interested.
That's really interesting to me, and so many people have talked about them, are the Enneagrams. And that one I've never taken. And that I love self-exploration and self-awareness. And I think that's a great starting point to begin your journey in the art of reinvention.
I agree. And, I will say one thing. I probably have taken maybe 7 or 8 of these tests. And most of them break people down into quadrants. There's 4 quadrants. And what I find is that my quadrant that reveals itself each time is so similar one to the next that I feel pretty
grounded.
Sure. Yeah, that's the direction that my heart is telling me to take. It's one of those things you're not restarting every time. It's not going to say that you should be an engineer when you really should be a decorator, or, it doesn't do that. It just asks you questions in a multitude of different ways. So
it's almost like
it
gives you permission to follow the seed, the thing that either maybe you can revisit something from your childhood, or something that you've had on the side that you might want to look at a different way, or something that you've been doing for a while that maybe you can dig into a little deeper.
Well, sometimes I think what's happened for me recently is I had a career for like 45 years. At the end of that career, I realized I really didn't like the career. However, there was one job that I loved in that career. And if I wasn't on a building
career path,
where I had to do more, get promotions, do this, do that, I could just do that job, do it to the best of my ability and enjoy it. I asked for that, and that's been very satisfying. So, sometimes there's a piece of it, and you might be tired of the thing you're doing, but maybe in that same field. And what I found for me is that I had experience in that field, and I could bring that experience to whatever job in that field I wanted to focus on. And I didn't have to give up all those years of experience.
So did you ever get the accused of being overqualified for the job?
Yeah. And I just basically said, I am at a phase in my life right now where I've learned a lot. I bring a lot to the table. And I know from all of my many years in this field that this is the job I want. And actually, I was never questioned anymore about that. So I think it depends on how. Oh, I know some people in that business would say, oh, that's giving up. That's kind of a starter position or whatever. And it's like, I don't care. It's something that checks all the boxes for me. And so, and it also has enough growth involved within that role that it's very satisfying. So, yeah, I know people have said, and I think for me, I have a good reason for looking for a job for which I may be overqualified. And that is been there, done that, finished. I'm not trying to be president of my own company at this point. You know what I'm saying? It's I think I came across in my interviews as knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that answered a lot of questions for
Well, and it
future.
also enabled you to start out at the top of the pay for that particular position
Yeah, they gave
instead
me
of
a little
being,
extra.
so that was nice. But I think we're gonna have
Yeah.
to wrap things up here, Judy. I think we
Oh,
are
darn it.
both.
I'm having too much fun.
Well, this has been fun. I mean, I
Yes,
love talking about tests and invention and
I do
discovering
too.
yourself and playing around with who I am and where I'm going. And that is just
It's
you.
rewarding. We have so many of the same characteristics in that area because I think we really enjoy the same sorts of adventures. So thank you for including me on this trip. I appreciate it.
Cool. Okay. We'll wrap it up here, Judy. Love you.
Okay. Love you too. Talk soon, I
Bye-bye.
hope.
Yeah,
Bye bye.
of course.